please, if you are here right now and you are using a pseudonym, I really like to know your name. Sylvester says, I can't speak where I am. All right, that's fine. So just please go ahead, tell us your name. I can see some new persons joining. We have Gideon, we have Shegon. I saw Shegon just now joining. So please, if you're just joining us, please introduce yourself. Just give us your name and what you do and where you're tuned in from. And the person with 5,500, particularly, I would like for you to just please tell us your name so that at least I'll not address you by 5,500, except if you are indeed money. Or maybe your name is Owoni Koko. But please go ahead. Just tell us your name so that we have an idea of what your name is and where you're tuned in from. Gideon says, Gideon Ogoda from Babakaliki. Amazing. Thank you for that. Who else is here that has not introduced him or herself yet? All right. Thank you, everyone. Tonight, I am not going to be working with a slide, but of course, I'm going to be sharing my screen. And when I say share my screen, I'm going to be sharing. Basically, what I want to do tonight is to take you through some of the things that I've learned over time, both as a coach and as a therapist, and as well as a consultant. So I believe that there are some of you here today who probably have some goals, some dreams, some ideas that you want to execute. Or maybe you're like me, you have a whiteboard in your studio and you keep putting ideas on your whiteboard, but sometimes it doesn't get executed. For me, a lot of the ideas on my whiteboard, a lot of them are for the future. That's why they're on my whiteboard anyway, so that I can always see them. But maybe you have action plans that you're not executing yet. Or maybe you have a dream that you want to see come to pass, but so far, that dream has not come to pass so far. Maybe you have goals, desires. It could even be that you want to make money. It could be that you want to blow. It could be that you want to get married. Of course, so there are a lot of things that we all run after in this life. All of us are running after something. When you meet somebody who's not running after anything, well, that person probably has everything in the bracket of nothing. But a lot of times, all of us are basically running after something. So if you are here this night and you are running after something, you have a goal, you have a dream, you have a target, you have a mission in life, you have something you are running after, this is the webinar. I call it webinar, not because it's actually a webinar, because it's a workshop actually. So this workshop is for you this day. And this workshop is going to be very, very short. And at the end, I'm also going to give you an opportunity to take this step further. Of course, I'm going to tell you to join us in the Fear Resolve process, which is starting in about 5 days' time, just for some specific few who are going to be joining us. So as we get started right now, the first thing I would like for you to do is write down 3 areas of your life that you feel like you want to see an improvement. 3 areas of your life that you want to see an improvement. Maybe it's even 1 area of your life. Areas of your life that you want to see an improvement, particularly within the next 90 days. So it may be in the area of your finances. Remember, I said that I'm not going to be using slides because so it could be in the area of your finances. It could be in the area of your, of course, when we talk about finances, it also covers business. It could be in the area of your relationships. All right. It could be in the area of relationships. Who can give me an idea of an area of life that we all have goals, that you have goal, you have dream, you have something you are running after? Who can give me an idea? Give me an idea. Give me an idea. So suggest something to me. Suggest something to me. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. If you can, I'll appreciate if you can be very, very fast.
Legacy.
You say what?
Legacy.
Legacy. All right. So amazing. So we have 1, we have 2, we have 3. These are 3 areas that at least I know right now. Okay, family goals, career. Okay, so maybe we should add those ones too. So let's put 4 here. Let's put career, and then let's put 5 here, and let's say family. I think relationship and family should stay together. I think relationship and family should stay together. So you have career goals, you have family goals, you have career goals, you have family goals. One person who's meant to be in this webinar just sent me a message. I can't find the link. Interesting. All right. So I want you to look at these different areas of your life that you've mentioned right here. What particularly are you looking to get? What exactly are you looking to get? What is your goal? What is your goal? Now, for tonight, because this can be a little bit generic, I'm going to be using finances a lot for this session tonight. I'm going to be using finances and business a lot for this session tonight. But of course, you can categorize, you can contextualize it for yourself. All right. So, using the context of finances, I want to know if finances is something you want to improve over the next 90 days. Of course, a lot of us want to do that. Um, if Gideon remembers, in January when we had lasting transformation, I think I'm not sure Mary was not in that class. I'm not sure Mary was in that class, but in January when we had lasting transformation, I remember mentioning that finances was one of my goals, and I'm glad that as I'm seated right now, I am about some percentage close to hitting that overall goal, the overall goal for the entire year. Some percentage hitting that. And basically, what happened was because I shifted my focus from something I was doing to add a new income stream. The moment I added a new income stream, that created a whole new array of stuff for me. So I want you to look at, maybe it's your finances, maybe it's your relationships, maybe it's legacy, whether it's career, any area of your life that you want to create significant improvement in the next 90 days. And I want you to write down that significant improvement. So let's say in the next 90 days, you want to generate $5,500, like the person in this meeting who cost him ourselves $5,500. I'm still interested in knowing who that person is, by the way. So let's say you want to generate $5,500 in the next 90 days. Now, this is what you want to accomplish. So let's say relationships, in the next 90 days, you want to get into a relationship. Let's say you want to start a relationship. So let's say in the next 90 days, you want to start a relationship. Let's say in the next 90 days, of course, you can't build a legacy in the next 90 days, except you are planning to die in the next 90 days anyway. And I'm sorry to say that. But of course, you can take your career up a notch higher within the next 90 days. You can do that within a 90-day frame. So I want you to simply sit down, as in right now, write out something, a specific goal you want to accomplish in the next 90 days. It could be that you want to, so for this career, it could be that you want to build your profile. So it could be you want to build your profile over the next 90 days. It could practically be anything, all right? But I want you to select something in an area of your life that you want to improve over the next 90 days. Now, I'm repeating that carefully because it's very vital for this session. It's very vital for this session. If you don't get to do that, we might not be able to, this workshop might not be meaningful to you. Again, I'm going to repeat that this is not your typical workshop. This is not the regular workshop that I host. This is an unusual one. In fact, that's one of the reasons why uh, that's one of the reasons why there is no slide anyway, because I just said, let's come together, let's offload stuff on everybody tonight. So after having done that, let's do the next thing. The next thing I want you to do is this. I want you to consider that this is your life, and this is your life right now. So let's say this is your life right now. And what you want to simply do is, let's say This is where you are in this journey of life right now. This is where you are in this journey of life right now. This is where you are right now. This time that you are right now, let's call this time, let's call it, this is the present that you are. All right? Now, in order to understand this present moment is where you have fear. This present moment is where you have fear. This is where you are currently being afraid of going forward. And okay, so before I jump into that, let me remind you that we are focusing on some key areas of your life. So pick a key area of your life, and I want you to consider this with me. So let me do a little bit of another diagram here to help you understand something. So let's say this is this, and this is a timeline of your life, so to say. I want you to consider that this is a car. This is a car right here. This car is headed this direction. So this car is headed this direction. It's coming from here, going this way. Now, what I want you to understand from here is that this car has a driver's seat. This car has a driver's seat. It has a steering wheel. This is the door. This is the door right here. All right? Now, what I want you to understand here is you might be at this particular stage right now. You might be in this car right now. You are going forward. But fear may be stopping you and trying to make you say, you can't go beyond here. You can't go beyond here. This is where you can go. This is how far you can go. And you need to actually move forward. You need to push your own life forward. You need to move forward. So how do you handle that? That's where I want you to pay attention to this right now. So this is the present moment. All right? Now, every human being, there's no single human being who does not have this part of their life and this part of their life. Every single human being has this part that we call present, and we have a past, and we have a future, which I would like to call pending. Now, this is where fear originates from. Fear usually originates from the past, and that fear, we carry it into the present. And when we consider the future, what happens is we now begin to have anxiety. And I want you to pay close attention to this right now, because I always say in class that your present needs ownership from you. Your past needs healing from you. And your pending, your future needs acceptance from you. The reason why I always say that is because every fear you have right now is coming from some experiences you've had in the past. And so when in a few minutes, when I'm going to be walking you through 4 things that you can do when fear seems to be stopping you, when I'm going to be walking you through 4 things you can do when fear seems to be stopping you, and right now I'm writing some things down. So some things popped up in my head, so I had to write them down. Now, fear usually comes from something you have experienced in the past. It is not possible for you to be afraid of something you've never seen before, something you've never experienced before, something you have not heard before, something you have not felt before, something you have not smelled, tasted before. It's not possible. In fact, you can't be afraid of something you don't have a past experience of. The reason why you're afraid of something right now is because you probably have a past experience with that thing. And now so I need to balance what I'm saying. You either have a personal past or you have an absorbed or a learned past. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is this. So let me give you a classic example. So I remember there was a time in my life that I was not afraid of snakes. But one day, something happened one day. I was in our house, and I shared this story the last session that we had. I was in our house, and I was um I was in our house. My younger sister was sitting somewhere in front of me. And then somehow, somewhere, my mom ran from where she was sitting and came and with a stick hit something on the roof, somewhere around the asbestos on the roof. And then she killed a snake. And when she killed the snake, she had to move us away from that snake, move us away from that snake. And from that day, I learned that snake is something we need to be afraid of. Now, many years later, my mom, now a school teacher, she sent me to go and cut cane for her. That is, she wants to use it to torture or maybe beat some school children. And she sent me to go and cut cane for her. Now, I went to the fence, the estate in front of her house. And then on climbing the fence, I saw a cobra. The cobra just did this head like this. The cobra was not even trying to attack me. The cobra may probably just be sitting down there, trying to just warm up itself. And I saw this cobra raising its head. And you know the funny thing? In the next split second, I found myself in like 2 streets away from my house. I ran away. Now, why did I run away? When I became an adult, I had to trace that fear of snake because um, in when I first moved away from my parents' house to go and stay alone, sometimes in the night I'll be dreaming of snakes, and I'll be dreaming of snakes such that I'll be very afraid, such that I'll wake up, carry my legs from the floor, and lift my legs into the air. And then when I wake up, I'll meet my legs in the air. Now I have to tell myself, calm down, it's only a dream. These are things that personally, snake has never beaten me before. But because it was a learned experience, I learned it from seeing my mom kill snake. I also learned it from watching movies where snake was kind of, the way we do shield people in movies, of course, if you watch Nollywood. And I remember that at that time too, there was also something called anaconda. So I had kept all of that in my unconscious mind. And so when I was dreaming of snake, I was literally just playing out everything I had seen in my entire growing up years, right? So sometimes the fear you have doesn't necessarily need to be something that you have personally experienced. It could be something that you learned from someone. And that's the same thing when it comes to, let's say, the fear of failure, the fear of success, the fear of what will people say, the fear of letting go, the fear of holding on. Like, in a particular market, there's a word that they use, particularly in cryptocurrency, they say hold for your dear life. The fear of holding on for your dear life that you lose money, the fear of going broke, the fear of there are a lot of fears that we all experience in this life, all right? So you need to understand that this fear is coming from a place. This fear has a source. And it's the reason why I always tell people that you can't use motivation to overcome fear. You cannot use motivation to overcome fear. Yes, motivation can serve temporary inspiration for you, and it will actually get you to feel okay for the time being. But what happens is that after a few days, weeks, or maybe months, that fear will come back. And at that point, motivation may not be able to handle it anymore, because at that point, you really, really need to handle that fear. So let me tell you something here that you need to understand. And um, in case you are just joining us, you can introduce yourself in the chat box so that we can all get to meet you. So again, the fear that you have is coming from a past experience you have, either a personal past or an absorbed, a learned past. All right. Now, in the present, the fear that you are experiencing is basically coming from something that I like to call okay, so let me illustrate it this way. When it's coming from the past, it is coming in front of an episode. When it's going towards the future, it's coming in the form of anticipation. And this is where it gets linked to anxiety. So when you are moving towards a goal, when you are moving towards a dream, when you are moving towards a particular thing you want to accomplish, and you're having fear, that fear you're having in that present moment, is that coming from a past, something you've learned in the past, something you have experienced in the past. And so it creates a new episode of that same thing you've learned in the past. Now, here is something that I wanted to mention earlier on. Our brain learns things in 3 ways. What did I say? Our brain learns things in three ways. So, what are those three ways? Let me mention that to you so that you can understand. So, let me mention that to you so that you can easily understand. Our brain learns things in three ways. So, three ways our brain learns. Okay, that is too small. It's not going to be visible for our eyes. So let's take that up to like 32. So let's map this out here. Let's say three ways your brain learns. And the first way I want you to know is that your brain learns, one, through generalization. All right? Generalization is the first way your brain learns. What does generalization means? This is what I want you to pay attention to here. When I told you that the fear you are currently experiencing is coming from a past you've experienced before, that fear is coming from that past. What I meant is this: the first time you experience a fear, the first time something happens to you, your brain learns it. So your brain captures it, your brain stores it. There's a let me call it a device within your brain. It's not a device in the sense of like electronic device, okay? But let me call it a device in the sense of so that you can easily understand it. There is a device in your brain called the amygdala. There's also another one called the hippocampus. There's also the third one called the hypothalamus. The three of them work together to store memories, to store emotions, to store feelings, and to store thoughts. The hippocampus stores pictures. The hypothalamus brings those pictures. The amygdala sends you feelings. It gets you to feel things at every single point in time. So it's kind of, the two of them kind of work together like CIA, FBI, and police. The three things, the major work that they're trying to do is just to protect you from danger. So when something happens to you, maybe you failed in the past, your brain learns it. Maybe you read something in class and your friend laughed at you. Your brain does what? It stores it. And it stores it for a particular purpose. So that in the future, if there's going to be something similar to that, your brain can quickly tell you that this thing is about to happen again. Be aware, beware, be on guard, be cautious. This thing may repeat itself again. And so, what that brain has done at that point is to learn something and generalize it. Let me give you a clue to that. If you drive a car, and I want you to, if you are the kind of person who drives, as at this point, I'm still not able to drive a car perfectly yet, but it's part of my 2021 goal anyway. So don't laugh at me in case you're hearing me say that right now. Now, if you drive, let's say you learned driving with a manual gear. When you learn to drive, you probably learned with a particular car, right? So let's say when I was learning to drive, I learned with the vehicle they call Volkswagen Passat. So you should know that it's years ago that I've been driving, but of course, my driving is not perfected even till now. So I'm going to driving school to go and perfect my driving in the next few weeks anyway. Oh God, they don't laugh at me. Oh. So when you learn to drive, so when I was learning to drive, I learned to drive with a Volkswagen Passat many years ago. If I'm to drive today and I want to drive a Toyota Camry, will I have to start? And that Toyota Camry uses manual gear. Will I have to start to learn how to drive this Toyota Camry today? The answer will most likely be what? So I want you to answer. I want you to please type in an answer in that. I want you to please type an answer. The question is this. Many years ago, when I was learning how to drive, I learned with Toyota Passat. Today, if I want to learn how to drive, and the driving school says that I'm going to be using a Toyota Camry or maybe a Toyota Corolla, and it's still the same gear, the same manual gear, will I have to learn how to use that manual gear all over again? Okay, so Chikere says no, Ade says no. Good. Why is that? The reason why that is because my brain has learned that, and my brain is now generalizing that same manual gear to every car that uses manual gear. But if I sit down in an automatic car that uses an automatic gear, I will need to sit down and then pay attention and learn that one at least for the first few times I'm going to be driving an automatic gear, right? That's the way our brain learns. Once we have an experience in the past, our brain utilizes that same experience in the present and helps us to project into the future. So when it cannot project into the future, that is when this that I mentioned here, that is when this anticipation now begins to happen. It now begins to create a lot of anxiety for you, such that you are not sure what's ahead. You are not sure what is going to come. You are not sure what will happen if you do this. You are not sure what will happen if you take that step. That's the reason why that is happening. And so when you are in such situations, this is the first thing to do. Remember, this workshop is focused on what to do when everything says go, but fear says no, right? The first thing you want to do there is to find more information. So that's the first thing to do, find more information. The information could be for you to go into your past to find information that can help you, and then you now generalize that information into the present and also into the future. All right, that's the first way your brain learns. I hope you pick that. The first thing to do when you want to be able to move ahead, even when fear is stopping you, is what? To find information. Find information from your past that can help you in the present. Is the reason why I always remind you that your past needs healing from you, your present needs ownership from you, and your future needs acceptance from you. Now, let me explain what finding information from the past and healing the past, what it means. Sometimes we've had experiences in our lives that this experience may be good and this experience may be bad. Now, the thing is, every experience in life teaches us a lesson. A lot of times, we are not the ones who are not learning, we are not paying attention to pick the lessons from such experiences in life. Now, you know the interesting thing, because your brain learns through generalization, even when you are not consciously learning, your brain is still learning, because there's a core principle of the brain called you cannot not learn. It's a default design of the brain. The brain always learn. As you are here right now, even if you are not listening, if you are doing something else, your brain will keep absorbing the information. When your brain needs to utilize that information, it supplies it to you through generalization. All right. So that's the first step you need to take. All right. Now, second way your brain learns is what we are going to call here. We are going to call it distortion. So we're going to call it distortion. Now, what does distortion mean? It means when you are going through an experience, whether good or bad, cognitive distortion will take place in the sense that your brain will try to conform that experience to fit into something you are already used to. Main reason why your brain does that is because your brain does not like to be surprised. Did you get that? When you are experiencing something, your brain will try to distort it to fit your previous experiences. And sometimes it's not even particular to just what you're experiencing. Sometimes it could be beliefs, sometimes it could be learnings. So, for example, let's say I tell you that if I tell you something that is completely new, you most likely not accept it. You know why you most likely not accept it? Because your brain does not have the previous experience of that information that you can use to generalize in the present. So rather than accept it, your brain will distort it. It will distort it to fit your current frame. It will distort it to fit your current, your beliefs, your values, your mental posture. Your brain will distort it in order to help you live with it in the moment. And so when you're learning something and you're experiencing or you're learning something for the first time, sometimes it will excite you. Your brain is absorbing it. But when you need to use it, your brain may not particularly recall everything you have learned. It will only supply you the ones that fit into your preconceived beliefs, your preconceived notion, your preconceived, let me even say it, prejudices. All right. And this is why when fear tells you no and everything tells you to go, it is because of this distortion. This is a new experience. You've not had this experience before. What happens? Because there is no prior information, there's no previous database for your brain to utilize, it now begins to suggest that anticipation to you, that anxiety to you. And so you now begin to feel jittery. And as I mentioned in the last session, that fear now begins to take many forms. It now begins to take forms such as procrastination. It takes forms of rigidity. It takes forms such as perfectionism. It takes forms such as we are trying to. There are quite a lot of ways that fear takes its form. I'm going to try and find that here and share that with you. All right. I hope that you are getting something from what I'm sharing so far. If you are getting something, please type in the chat box. Let me know that you are getting something right now. So again, your brain is constantly learning. There's no time that your brain is not learning. Your brain is constantly learning. And knowing that your brain is constantly learning, sometimes you need to intentionally open yourself to new experiences so that your brain can actually take in those new experiences and help you be a better human being, help you be a better person. All right. So let me look at what you are typing here. Okay, so Chikere says yes. Mary says this is so good. Midra says yes. Azan says yes. Bapem says yes. I've already identified where I fall under. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So this is what I was saying. When fear does not have prior database to utilize, fear now takes many forms such as anxiety, timidity, sometimes superstition. It is fear that makes people to have a lot of superstitions. It is actually coming from fear. Now, I grew up as Dayo Samuel. I grew up challenging a lot of superstitions. I mean, my parents will, you know what they used to do in Yoruba land, they will say that that is proverb is the horse of statement or of talking. I just did a transliteration of that for you, but this is the translation. It is proverbs that deepen the meaning of a conversation. I don't know how to say it in English, but in Yoruba they say that so conversations ride on the back of proverbs. That I don't know how to contextualize it, Jare. So what happens is I found that when I was growing up, when my parents or when an adult, when they speak a parable, and I can instantly spot the what should I call it, the loophole in that parable. So for example, some of you may have heard lately that what an adult can see when he is sitting down, a child cannot see when he is standing up, even if he climbs on a tree, right? And you can see that some people have begun to challenge the idea that the child will use drone, right? That's how I used to be. That's my default state when I was growing up. So when an adult speaks a parable beside me, or when they quote something like that, like all these African proverbs, when they speak it beside me, I look for the loophole in what they said and point them to it that this thing does not have to always fall that way. It is not necessarily that way. So somebody will tell me that this is how it has been. Okay, in the language that we use, we say, bó ti wà láti kọ́ ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ ló máa rí láyé àti ìgbà. So I'll say that, are you God that you don't change? That is what they are saying, is that the way it has been is how it will always be, and that's how it's going to continue to be. So I'll tell them that, are you God that does not change? Why will you stay stuck in one position and tell yourself that this is how it has always been? Why are you? And then those days, I remember I used to read in Matthew 25 that Jesus said that they make void the word of God by their traditions. So I used to challenge a lot of those things, calling it traditions. All right. You know what was happening? I did not know that I was actually helping myself to face a lot of superstitions. So when I became an adult, it was easier for me to challenge a lot of superstitions, even when it fall or when they are falling within the orbit of Christian context, so to say. So sometimes fear takes the form of loneliness. Fear could be the reason why some people are lonely. They are holding on to their fear. Fear could be the reason why some people are worrying. Fear is at the back end of trying to control everything that's going on in your life, trying to control everyone around you. Fear is at the back of cowardice. Fear is at the back of hesitancy. It's at the back of doubt. Indecision is often coming from a place of fear. Procrastination, withdrawal, addiction, that is, you are holding on to that thing out of the fear of something you may lose. So fear is at the back of addiction. Anger, rage over aggression. And as I always say, if you live in Lagos, you most likely live in some form of fear because you don't know when somebody will break into your house. But that's even far-fetched. You don't know when somebody will step on your toes while you are in traffic, or you don't know when somebody will step on your toes in bank and the person will still claim their right, and the person will get you angry. The person will shout at you, they will scream at you. Fear is simply what is powering that. Complex is whether inferiority complex, superiority complex. That is, inferiority complex is you feel you are not up to that standard. Superiority complex is you feel you are more than them. Is coming from a place of fear. I know somebody whose superiority complex is so dominant that this person, last week, I was telling this person, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? I was telling this person that you said this person made certain statements in a particular WhatsApp group. And I told this person that what you've just said now has devalued your leadership, in case you don't know. If I were you, what you need to do is to go back to that place, apologize to them, just tell them you are sorry for the way you talked, but you are not sorry for defending what you were defending. The person said, lie, I cannot say sorry. Now, when it happened to that group, this is superiority complex. When it happened to that group, I felt like, well, maybe because this one now happened to me. This person kept me waiting for 2 straight days just to get a single feedback from this person. When I now finally, the person finally picked my call after 2 days. And I said, how have you gotten so and so thing? But he said, yes, I got it around 12 a.m. in the night. My last message to the person was 1 a.m. The person did not reply, did not say anything. So he said, I got around 12 a.m. I was like, are you kidding me? You could have told me now. Instead of saying sorry that it's just something else, the person just said, it was because so and so person was with me. That was why I did not tell you that I've gotten it. And I was like, is that what I'm saying? So I got to understand this person's superiority complex. But you know, the funny thing is coming from a place of fear. You are afraid of what will happen if you actually let yourself be vulnerable before people. You are afraid of what will happen when you say sorry to people, that you are afraid of losing your respect. You are afraid of losing your status in front of other people. So sometimes it could be coming from that place. Suspicion. When people are suspecting, like you are suspecting your wife or you are suspecting your husband, is coming from a place of fear. I'm just saying, by the way. And I don't know. The spirit may be speaking to you. You may be suspecting your girlfriend or you may be suspecting your boyfriend here. The spirit may be speaking to you right now. It's coming from a place of fear. Depression. And now, if it is not clinical depression, most depression is coming from a place of lack. And when I say lack, like a lot of times when people tell me that they are depressed, I find out that sometimes it's money that they need. But sometimes some people are just afraid of the consequence of something, and so they get depressed. It's that same anticipation that leads to the anxiety, and then it creates depression for them. Social shyness, social anxiety is also coming from a place of fear. All right. So I hope you understand that. So you said the question, of course, you can always ask your question. Some of you are laughing at me. Some of you are laughing at me. Who will teach me Yoruba? Well, I will need to learn Yoruba too. I know somebody inside this group that can teach you Yoruba. Or 2 persons self. Oluwatomisi and Fisaya can teach you Yoruba, Mildred. So Gideon says, why is fear so subtle? Why does it take up these forms? Because if not for a class like this, many of us wouldn't know we have issues because there is something we are afraid of. Thank you for that question. And this is where I'm going to make a statement that I've been itching to make since. So Stephen Campbell, is it Stephen Campbell? Is it Stephen Campbell? Am I sure that's Stephen's name? Well, for now, let me call it Steve Campbell. My mind is telling me that that's not his name. The person that created the story archetype. But I know his name is Campbell Sharp. I can't remember the other one. Gideon, you might know that the story arc that is um, there's a hero, he experiences conflict, he meets a guide, and then the guide guides him to what's the result, something like that. That's what I'm trying to remember. The person that created that, his name is, I think, Stephen Campbell. Now, he made a statement that I have been trying to help people understand. And he says something, he says that fear, he says it this way: the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. And I'd like to repeat that and explain that to you. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. Now, as I speak that, I want you to imagine that there is a cave, a literal cave, and you're about to go into this cave. Now, based on what we have shared before now, so let's say your finances, so let's say you want to make $5,500. This $5,500 is at the end of that cave. But in order for you to go from where you are to where that $5,500 is, you need to pass through this cave. A normal cave is dark, right? Joseph Campbell, thank you for reminding me, not Stephen. So it's Joseph Campbell, thank you. So Joseph Campbell said that the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. And I want you to imagine that you want to make $5,500. Now, this $5,500 is at the end of this cave. In order for you to go from where you are right now to the end of that cave, to the $5,500, you need to pass through this cave. Now, I'm calling $5,500, and I'm not feeling anything like before that I'll call $2,000 and I'll feel like it's plenty. Oh, sometimes levels can change, man. Don't mind me. Don't mind me. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. But this is what I'm trying to help you understand. If you're trying to get to $5,500 and you are here right now, there seems to be nothing. There seems to be, in fact, my mind is painting a picture in my mind. So let's do this here. Let's do it this way. So let's say this is you here. This is you right here. This is you here. This is $5,500 at the end of this cave. This is a cave. If you want to go from this place, if you want to go from this place, if you want to go from this place to this place right now, what do you need? First, as with all caves that I know are usually dark, right? So what that means is, if you want to go from this place to that $5,500, and this $5,500 could be any goal that you are seeking. It could be, as we've already mentioned earlier on, it could be maybe your business, you want to improve your business. It could be maybe your relationships. It could be your family. It could be maybe you are trying to create a legacy. It could be maybe you want to build your career, but something you want to accomplish within the next 90 days. Now, this cave holds the treasure that you seek. If you sit down where you are, this place right here, you won't get to this $5,500. You know why? Because you have to pass through this cave in order to go from that point to this point. Now, in order to go through this cave, what do you need? How do you pass through that cave and get to that $5,500? At the end of that cave, you need one thing, only one thing. You need light. Because this cave is dark, you most likely want to feel your way around to know where to put your leg, to know whether you are going to hit your head on some of the roof of the cave. You will need to understand where to put your hand, where to put your leg, where to put how do you need to make your progress going forward. But you know the interesting thing? As long as that cave is dark, you will continue to struggle and continue to try to figure your way out. But once you can get light, even if it is coming from just your device, even if it's coming from just a tiny even if it's coming from just an ordinary touch from your phone like this, even if it's coming from something like this is sufficient enough to light your way so that you can find where to actually go. So instead of trying to struggle and trying to find everything with light, you can simply look at your legs and look at, okay, so I can put my leg here. Oh, I can avoid this on my head. Maybe there are even thorns inside that cave. You can easily see it and avoid it. You can easily bypass the things that may hurt you. You can easily avoid the things that may even kill you. How do you get that illumination? How do you get that light? That does not come from motivation. That will come from you gaining understanding of exactly how to wade that cave. More importantly, how to handle that fear. How to, of course, the way I used to say it is this: the most effective way to overcome fear is not motivation, it is illumination. Because as with this case, as with this cave right now, if somebody was motivating you in that dark, what will be happening? I want somebody to unmute him or herself and tell me what will be happening if somebody is motivating you inside that dark cave. What do you think will be happening? So can somebody unmute him or herself? So unmute yourself briefly and just share with us. What do you think will happen? You are being motivated inside that darkness. What is going to happen? Like this person is telling you inside that darkness or inside that dark cave to do it afraid. They are telling you, you can do it. You can do it. What's going to happen? Inside the darkness, what's going to happen?
You keep bumping into things. You feel you have that energy, and you just keep yourself.
I'm not able to hear you clearly. Oh, Mildred, um, can you?
Okay, I'll say.
Chika, in case we cannot hear you clearly, please. Okay, go on, Mildred.
Okay, I will say both the motivator and the motivatee will stumble and fall, probably die, because there's no way. First of all, there's no way I will enter a dark place. No matter the motivation, there's no way I will enter a dark place. Even if I have catch eyes, I will not enter a dark place. So the person motivating me to go to a dark place is actually, I will drag the person along. I will both fall inside there.
And reading the responses here, Gideon says, I'll tell the person, why can't they enter the cave themselves? Say everywhere dark. 5,500 says, I'll just tell the person to get into the cave and bring the money. She's here, she's gingered. I think the motivator get to, hey, one didn't objective. But that's what happens with us. So sometimes you even find that people, they feel afraid, they are experiencing fear, and they will go on YouTube and watch motivational videos. Now, it's not like the motivational videos would not work. It's only that the motivational video will not exactly solve the problem, because you need light. That's what you need. You don't need plenty motivation in that case. What you need is light. All right. So a lot of times I tell people that what you need to get is get light, get illumination, understand how your fear works, understand what is powering that fear, so that you can actually move your life forward. So Gideon asked earlier, I said that why is fear so soft? Why does it take up these forms? Because if not for a class like this, many of us wouldn't know that we have issues because there is something we are afraid of. It comes down to education. It comes down to the person who's standing by their side while they are that cave. If the person is not equipped with light, with touch, the person will not turn on the light for them. And the best the person will tell them is, you it now, go ahead and do it. Or the person may even quote scriptures for you and tell you that for your time, the appointed time has come for you to do it. And they may even tell you one of the nastiest statements I used to hear from people, that yes, it is time for you to rebuild and to rebuild the broken down walls. That one used to make me laugh. Everybody is doing Everybody,
He God forgive you.
everybody, that one used to make me laugh a lot. Like, why does everybody have to be rebuilding broken down walls?
Because the walls are broken now. Let, let, let's do this one in peace.
So the thing is,
For
a lot
God's
of
sake.
times, a lot of times we lack the adequate information we need. We lack the necessary information that can help us going forward. And so we don't even know that we are afraid. We just know that we are holding on to certain things. So I want you to right now again look at what is something you want to accomplish over the next 90 days, something you need to do over the next 90 days that you feel like fear has been stopping you. And I'm going to walk you through 4 things that may be holding you back. And so perhaps, because as I said just now, once somebody can come along and bring some form of illumination for you, it's very, very easy for you to actually go through whatever it is you're afraid of. The moment you have sufficient light, it's very easy to go through that thing. And it's the reason why I always quote Psalm 119, where David said that your word is a light unto my path and a lamp unto my feet. Christians like to quote scriptures without necessarily understanding what that scripture means. Because, of course, we grew up in a culture that told us to cram scriptures. I grew up in a culture like that. But later on, I disliked everything cramming because I went to one school called Futa. So I dislike cramming. But eventually, I learned a better way to memorize stuff. And that's what still helps me to today. For example, I'm doing this entire session without having to use any slide. And it's still coming from and there's still a lot that I know that I'm not even talking about. And that's why classes like fear resolve process, that's what we do in the fear resolve process. So in the fear resolve process, for example, the way we used to do fear resolve processes, we do it as a 2 days intensive event. People come to class, we actually sit down physically inside class. But because of lockdown 2020, we did not hold fear resolve. We'll be having, I just realized some days ago that we'll be having fear resolve since 2017. So that makes it 4 years this year that we'll be having fear resolve. And so far, fear resolve has graduated nothing less than, if I'm going to be sure, so far fear resolve has graduated over 300 students. Before we moved from online to offline, we had graduated about 200 people at that point, because the class used to hold online. And so because it was holding online constantly, we were having plenty of people join from different places. When we moved to physical, we had people come from Abuja, we had people come from Makodi, we had people come from different parts of the country. We had one person come, I think, from is it Port Harcourt or so. We have people come from different parts of the world. But this time around, Fair Resolve is going to take place online. And this time around, because of the nature of Fair Resolve, we are breaking it down into a 3-weekend class. That is, we get together Saturday, Sunday, and walk through a lot of details that you need to understand. So while you are working on this right now, I want you to, while I'm going to share with you a lot more about Fair Resolve right now, what I want you to do right now is, if you have a note, a paper, and a pen with you, I want you to kind of draw this here right now. What is something that is your target? What is a target that you have for yourself over the next 90 days? What is a goal or a target that you have for yourself? That now, make sure this is 90 days. Don't let it go past 90 days. There's a reason why I use 90-day cycle whenever I'm dealing with clients, especially when it's a coaching session. I usually deal in 90-day cycles, most because it's something that is easy to quickly assess, quickly accomplish, something that you can quickly test out and find out if it's going to work. If it's not going to work, then you can quickly move on to something else. So you don't spend 12 months chasing one thing that's not going to work. That's the reason why I usually focus. In fact, the way I usually design our programs is to focus on 90 days interval. So we do it 3 months interval, 3 months interval, 3 months interval, so that by the end of the 3 months, we can access how far, what have we done, what has gone on so far. All right. So I want you to pick something in your life right now. Where did that come from? Somebody just feel on my table here. So I want you to pick something that you can make your focus for the next 90 days. And I want you to write that down. Make it very, very specific. So it could be your finances, it could be your business, it could be your relationships, it could be your family, It could be maybe you are trying to build legacy. I don't believe that you can build legacy in 90 days. I don't believe that, because legacy is something that I work high-end clients only through. When I'm working with an high-end client, legacy is something that I usually walk them through. And so we only do that towards the end of their life. That is, we design it so that they go towards the end of their life. And I think Mary is here. I think we've done that together, Mary. Am I correct? I think we've done that together. Like designing something like, when you die, what will people think of you? What will be in people's mind? So there are a set of questions that I use to help people design their legacy. Okay, Mary says, yes, we have. But of course, you can design your career in the next 90 days. You can build your profile in the next 90 days. Now, when it comes to career, for example, there's something that we usually call 5 Ps. 5 Ps. Profile is one of them. Profile, pitch, positioning, publishing, then pricing. I think these are 5 things that we used to talk about when we are talking about building your profile, building your career in about 90 days. So I want you to pick that specifically, and I want you to write that down. So Midra says, okay. Gideon says, you said if someone provides illumination, you let go of it. But are there cases where there is illumination, but the individual doesn't utilize this illumination? Yes, there are situations where people actually get to know exactly what's going on with them. They get to understand exactly what fears they are experiencing. And according to this, your question, illumination could come. Now, it's now subject to the person who received the illumination to make it work. I mentioned David the other time that your word is a lamp unto my path and a lamp unto my feet. Your word is a light unto my path and a lamp unto my feet, right? Now, the same word that David had is almost the same thing that we still have till today. Though we have it in a very, very, like 100 times condensed form, right? Excuse me, please. Now, David had that same word, but that word became light for him. Now, light onto your path usually means, okay, as with the metaphor of that cave, light onto your path means that it is at the end. Like you are in a dark place, you are in that dark cave, and the treasure is just bringing out its head from where it is. You can see that $5,500 at the end, there. You can see it very far away. That is the light onto your path. So it is at the end of the path. That's what it means. That's what David said with that statement. It's at the end of that path. But in order for you to get there, you now need a lamp onto your feet. Now, the lamp onto your feet is like that illumination that you have in that cave. That's when you turn it on. You can check your legs so that you don't put your leg inside soldier ants. If you've had the experience of putting your leg inside soldier ants before, you know that it's not funny, especially if you happen to be a guy and you wear trouser, and the trouser happens to be tight like it was for me one day like that. So you can have the word as a light onto your path and a lamp onto your feet. A light onto your path is for distance. Lamp onto your feet is for immediately, right now. This is where you need to put your leg. This is the next step you need to take. This is the next step you need to take. I know the funny thing, the same David also said somewhere else. So sometimes this is how I pair people's experiences, especially I look at every other thing that they've said and try to use that to paint a picture of their lives. Now, the same David that is saying that the lamp is a word unto a lamp, a light unto my path and a lamp unto my feet. The same David said that even though I walk through the cave, the valley of the shadow of death, right? I will not be afraid. That is, I will choose not to be afraid, because there's a tendency that when there is no light, when there is no lamp, you will be afraid because of the amount of darkness you are in. So it's very likely that people have that illumination. Most times people don't have it anyway. But when they eventually have that illumination, yes, they could have that illumination and not do anything with it. It's like a video I posted on my Instagram, I think like yesterday or so. This guy was carrying bags of maybe like 4 bags of something, huge bag. This guy was carrying it. And you know the second hand, what the guy was carrying second hand, wheelbarrow, was carrying wheelbarrow like this and carrying 4 bags of something here. He now met somebody on the way. Let's call this person a guide. Let's call this person that person who came to come and motivate. But this person did not motivate. So rather than motivate, this person showed him what to do. This person brought down the 4 packs and put it inside the wheelbarrow, brought down the wheelbarrow from his hand, put the 4 packs inside the wheelbarrow, and the person went his way. This guy that was supposed to take advantage of this illumination did not take advantage of the illumination. You know what he did? He packed the bag and the wheelbarrow, everything together, carried it in his hand, and continued his journey. So you can be like that. But also sometimes it also depends on the person who's giving you that light. All right. It also depends on the person who's giving you that light. If the person does not share with you how to actually utilize that light will most likely be useless for you. Okay. So that's exactly because people tend to find validation for these other forms of fear and make it their comfort zone and neglecting the illumination. All right. So talking about comfort zone there. Fear sometimes is the reason why people stay within their comfort zone. And by the way, I hope you know that comfort zone is different for everybody. And what may be comfort zone for you may not be comfort zone for me. What you may see as this is my comfort zone may not be comfort zone for someone else. I know the good thing about this thing that we call comfort zone. Sometimes comfort zones are good. I know your mind like that. You will be like, what did you just say? I'm telling you that sometimes comfort zones are a great place to be. So it's not all comfort zones that are bad. That's what I want you to understand. So the fact that people preach comfort zone, it's not all comfort zones that are bad. Sometimes some comfort zones, you need those comfort zones in order to find your sanity. Because if you get out of that comfort zone, you might actually injure or you might actually scatter things for yourself. So sometimes it's very okay for you to have comfort zones. Okay? And I know that's quite different from what everybody else may be teaching you. And I understand that as well. So at this point, let me share a little bit with you about fear resolve while I'm going to touch on the last part of how our brain learns. Remember that I've mentioned three ways our brain learns, right? We'll talk about generalization, we'll talk about distortion. I'm going to mention the third one in the next few minutes. But before then, let me quickly share with you what we do in the fear resolve process. So this is what we do in the fear resolve process. We walk through this particular fear transformation sequence. This is what we call it. We call it the fear transformation sequence. It takes about 2 days for us to cover this. But because of the peculiarity of the present situation in the global economy right now, we are splitting this up into 3 weeks. So we are splitting it into 3 weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, Saturdays and Sundays, Saturdays and Sundays. So that makes it 6 classes for us to go through the scenario, script, story, states, and the strategies. Now, what do all of this mean? Let me answer that question briefly by sharing some testimonials here with you. So here's Olabode Damilola, who was at the last fear resolve that we had. He said that I had light bulbs during the part where I knew that there is a scenario, pattern, states, and strategies to my fears. I felt if I could take control or own this process, then I have nothing to worry about. I can do almost everything if I truly set my mind to do it. Now, what does that mean? Let me explain that to you. When we talk about scenarios, let me do a little bit of zooming out. So let me do a little bit of zooming out. So when we talk about scenarios, this is what we mean. Scenarios mean events and situations in our lives that create fears, or situations in our lives where we find ourselves in fearful situations. All right? Scripts are values, memories, beliefs that we have. Especially, this is the part of that cognitive distortion. This is the part where cognitive distortion comes in. Then the third is the stories, the narratives we tell ourselves or the narratives we share with other people. Then there's the state, how we feel per time. Now, the state of how we feel per time, fear is one of the ways we feel, but fear is not the only way you feel. In fact, the way we used to tell it in class is that you are not your feeling. The same way we tell people that you are not your behavior. Whatever way you behave, you learn how to behave that way, and you can unlearn how to behave. Then the fifth part, which is strategies, which is how we behave and our actions. All right. So these are the 5 things that make up the fear transformation sequence, and these are the things that we'll focus on during fear resolve process. Of course, if you want to register, you can go to dayosamuel.com/register, enter your name in the form there, and then Sylvester, who is our admin, is going to reach out to you and feed you with more information. Chikere, if I'm correct, you filled it last 2 weeks or so, and I believe that Sylvester has reached you with further information. Now, this happens to be Tomisin, who happens to be here today. During Fear Resolve, this is what our testimonial was. She said, I saw myself forgiving everyone in my past, and it was as if something heavy was taken off my shoulder. I never believed I was so beautiful because all these scars on me kept reminding me of the past, and I wish they could disappear. But after day 2 of the Fear Resolve process, I feel loved by myself. I could see love all around me. Elizabeth Akunyili, that name may sound familiar, and if it sounds familiar, you are not wrong. It's from the same family. Fear Resolve helped me understand why family has always been stress in my mind. I was able to identify why I developed a sudden phobia for family right after I found a loving relationship. That is, this person, once relationship starts like this and is tending towards family, the person opts out. All right, opts out because of that phobia for family. And when the relationship ended, I was sad about it, but excited that I didn't have to take on family stress. This is one of the many clarifications I got. Dr. Lide, who was part of the first, I think it should be, Dr. Lide was in first 3 Fear Resolve that we had. He did the first one, he did the second one, he did the third one. I think he even did the physical, yes, he even did a physical session. He came for a physical Fear Resolve process. And this guy has gone on to win a lot of awards, won a lot of gifts, became one of the biggest real estate consultants in Lagos right now. And when I say one of the biggest, when it was with what's the name of this company? Add something or something like that. That's the name. He moved from there to another company, moved from there to another company, and right now he's doing amazingly well. He even won a car last 2 weeks. He even won a car from just being a real estate agent. Before then, he could not make presentation because he's a naturally shy guy. And this was what he said. He said, today I had a presentation with the staff of Promasido Nigeria, owners and manufacturers of cowbell milk. I usually have fears in doing such large-scale presentations. Thanks to the Fear Resolve process techniques, I killed the presentation as I spoke and presented with clarity and confidence. And the management, as at that time, we're already telling them to get ready for site inspections to seal huge acres of land. Now, you know the funny thing? The land was actually sealed. They actually bought the land. They got the land, and they did well with that land. So if you want to be a part of Fear Resolve process, go ahead to dayosamuel.com/register. Now, these are the bonuses that we are adding to the Fear Resolve process this time around. We are adding a program called Confidence Unlocked, which is a 97 days personalized confidence makeover audio program. That is, every single week you get an audio from me. The audio is both, there are 2 parts of the audio. First part is a training. The second part is a sort of affirmation and hypnosis audio that puts you in a better state to take action. Part of what we also cover during that 6 weeks includes procrastination. So if you've been battling procrastination, this would be a good way for you to key in and completely take care of procrastination. Of course, my book, Limitless Courage and Confidence, has always been part of Fear Resolve process. So for every student of Fear Resolve process, they get a copy of my book, both digitally and physically. And when I say physically, this is the book actually, so that you can see that the book has actually been printed. This is the book up here. You can see me point to the book. And this is still the book here. So you can see this is a physical copy of the book. Now, the physical book has run out, so we no longer sell the physical book. So in case you want to buy the physical book, you can no longer get it. But you can get the digital copy for free when you join the Fear Resolve process. So at this point, I would like to take a few questions that you may have. If you have questions, King Ufoma says, "Good evening, great leader." Good evening, King Ufoma. Please, I want to know the reason you said that it's okay to stay in your comfort zone. So let me answer that question by telling you one of the foundational principles of the Fear Resolve process that we teach is that fear comes from a place of protection. Every fear you have is a protective mechanism. In fact, My mind just went, pew. Let me pick it from my book. So let me read it from my book here. Again, it is not every time that you need to leave your comfort zone. Sometimes your comfort zone, you need that comfort zone in order to have sanity. Sometimes you need that comfort zone in order for you to be able to to deal with worries, to deal with anxieties and all that. So when a lot of people preach that you leave your comfort zone, it's not always correct. Okay. And of course, the way I explained earlier on, that the way your brain is designed in such a way to protect you. And so when fear comes up, fear basically is trying to protect you. Now, let me read to you something from my book here, where I talked about why do we fear. Okay, and this is from page 122 from my book. So to answer your question that why did I say that it's okay to stay in your comfort zone? Well, to answer that, we fear primarily because fear is a protective mechanism. Fear is an emotion, and unspoken memory is stored in special parts of our brain, which makes you and I react rapidly, almost instinctively, in the face of perceived danger. Fear can be present in greater or lesser degrees in different individuals. I can notice when you look at different things people fear and how they fear those things. Now, the reptilian brain stems, the name comes from reptile. Its major work is to help us attack or to run away from something. The mammalian brain, it helps us to come up with coping strategies such as to freeze. That is, sometimes when you're afraid of something, you basically just freeze. You don't do anything because you don't even know what to do at that point. All right? And then it also helps us with another coping mechanism called aggression, which helps us to fight back. This is at the base of why people get angry. In fact, sometimes when I'm handling a client that has anger management problem, the first question I usually ask them is, what are they afraid of? And when they answer that question from a deep place, they get to find out that anger is only stemming from a place of something they're afraid of that they are not willing to look at. All right? And then the third part of our brain is the prefrontal cortex, which is the part that has to do with imagination, your working memory, and planning. Now, understanding each of these will help you master your fears, but of course, we'll talk about that. I think that should be, we always talk about that in fear resolve process. Now, what I've just read to you now may not look like that's answered your question. What I want you to understand is, in order to stay in your comfort zone, you would have initially created the comfort zone as a way for your brain to make sense of what is happening in your life. If something catches you by surprise and takes you out of that comfort zone, sometimes for some people, it makes them feel like they're going crazy, like they don't have any control over it anymore. Why? Because they are going outside of their comfort zone, particularly neurologically. Do you get it now? So comfort zone sometimes is very okay because you need that place in order for your brain to make meaning, to make sense of what's happening to you. And when you choose to go outside of that comfort zone, your brain gets overwhelmed, which is going to lead me to talking about the third way your brain learns. You remember that I mentioned two ways that your brain learns, right? So I'm going to talk about the third type right now. The third type right now would be what we are going to call deletion. So remember I talked about cognitive distortion, and for those who may just be joining us, I already talked about generalization as a way your brain learns to deal with fear. I already talked about distortion as a way your brain learns to deal with fear. The third way is the way your brain learns to deal with fear is deletion. You have certain experiences, your brain deletes them so that you don't get to remember them at a later time. Now, it's not like your brain actually deleted them. What happens from a neuroscientific perspective is that a neuron, anytime something happens to us, as with the case of that comfort zone, when that comfort zone was being built, what was happening was that neurons in your brains were firing. As they were firing, it's just like sparks of light were going on. The spark of light will get stronger the more you are supplying fuel, the more you are supplying electricity. So they say in neuroscience, there's a statement we usually make. We say that what you don't use, you lose. It's the same thing with that comfort zone. The more you get into that comfort zone, you get used to it. You get used to it a lot. Why? Because it helps you to make sense of what's happening to you. Now, when you get pushed out of that comfort zone by someone without your awareness, without pre-informing you, without preparing you, what happens is you get to have an overwhelm. And then what happens at that point is that the brain begins to delete certain parts of your experience in order for you to make sense of what's happening to you at that particular point in time. All right. Now, having said that, okay, you said I got your response on it very clear now. Okay, thank you for that. Now, having said that, let's talk about the last thing that we're going to talk about here, and it is, why do we fear failure? Remember that when you are trying to go towards something, as with the example, as with this diagram that I will be using here, that when you're driving towards a goal and you're being stopped, what's that thing that's stopping you? There's a different way I like to explain this, especially when I'm talking about leadership or when I'm talking about creating change in your life, like getting in the driver's seat and all that. But that's not the conversation for today. Maybe some other classes, maybe we'll talk about that. All right. What I'm trying to let you do here, to let you pay attention to here, is if you are trying to go towards this direction and you hit this blockade, why does that happen? And what do you do when that happens? Let me share with you here 4 reasons why that happens. All right. So if you're ready for that, please type yes. Please type yes. Please type yes. That will be the last thing I'm going to be sharing here. And again, if you want to be a part of Fear Resolve process, you can simply go to dayosamuel.com. Let me type it right now. Sylvester, please. Sylvester Automason, please help me type that in the chat. dayosamuel.com/register. And I hope that Sylvester or Tomisin, I hope they are here. Okay, yes, they are here. dayosamuel.com/register. You can simply go to dayosamuel.com/register and then enter your name, enter your details in the form there. Someone will reach out to you. And if you want to, you can actually read the entire details of Fear Resolve on that page. All right. So just go there and then register, and then one of our staff will reach out to you, and particularly Sylvester is going to reach out to you and give you more information. So there are 4 reasons why we fear failure. And when I say fear failure, failure does not necessarily mean that you have done this thing and you're going to fail and you will have to fail. To everybody, failure is different. So all of us have different definitions of failure. Interesting, I just spotted somebody in class. Madam Temi Lawrence, welcome. It's good to have you in class here. That's one of our girls, and she's in class this night. Interesting. Now, what do I want to teach you now? That's what I thought I did to when you were coming to class. And so I'd like to know, God, is there something new that you've learned since you said that there are things that you might have to learn and unlearn and relearn? So is there anything that you've learned?
Why are you putting me on this spot? I'm a student just like everyone. Yes, of course I have, Again, there are times you know things, but like you need to be reminded. Like I bet you that not every one of us acted on the information we knew the first time we heard about it. It took some cases, it took hearing and hearing again. So I like the fact that at least there's a science. Like there's a science behind our emotions, especially when it comes to fear. And there's a science. You have seen me, oh gosh, your day is ailing me. You have put me on the spot now. So, the fact that yes, there is a science behind this thing, and regardless of what your situation is, you can actually there's a framework to solve these things. There is, and a lot of times people are going about it the wrong way. So just go through the framework. If you like listening to motivation, right? Even though I can debate that, basically there are times I listen to motivation just to get to that moment, because by tomorrow morning I'll wake up to my senses and know that if I don't do that, either I'm scared or not, maybe because I'll go hungry or because of the consequence, right? I will end up doing it. But it's a very insightful session, and I really have had a really, really nice time. Yeah, thank you for having me. Amazing. Thank you for putting me on the spot.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And talking about framework, this is the framework that we teach in the fear resolve process. We call it fear transformation sequence. The idea of fear transformation sequence is you look at the area of your life that is creating fear, and then you create a new strategy to transform it. So if it is you've had maybe traumatic past, we can help you redesign that traumatic past to make sense in the now so that it doesn't create fear for you anymore. If it is in the area of scripts, values, beliefs that you've held onto, or the stories you tell yourself, like inner critic and all those, we can always help you repattern that, recreate that, transform that into something more meaningful and something that can help you going forward. All right, so let's look at 4 whys of failure. 4 reasons why people tend to have fear of failure. Okay, I think this should have been the 4 whys of the fear of failure. Let me see if I can still type on it. Okay, since I can't type on it, let me leave it alone. So 4 whys of failure. Number 1 is past trauma. Now, the first reason why people fear failure is a past trauma they've had in their lives. When I say past trauma they've had in their lives, I'm going to tell you a very, very tiny story about my life. When I was growing up, I used to dance a lot. I used to be very, the personality that you call it would be the kind of, at least I'm sure that if I were to do a personality test that time, I would have had maybe 50% sanguine. People who know me physically today know me that I don't have any sanguine nature in me. It doesn't exist anymore. What happened? It was killed off. How? By the number 2 thing here. It was killed off by number 2 thing here, which is, I'm going to call it overprotected childhood. In bracket, let's call it parenting. Let's just call it parenting. So first one is a past trauma that you've had. If you've ever failed before in any area of your life, in any way before, even if it is tiny, remember that your brain learns every single day, every single moment of your life. Now, your brain particularly your amygdala, keeping the memory of that, storing it. When you are trying to do something new, when you are trying to do something where you can't completely predict what is going to happen. Remember the part of predicting where we talked about this, right? Where we said there's past, there's present, and there's the pending. And the gap between the present and the pending, that is the future, is anticipation and anxiety, right? You remember that we talked about that the gap between that present and the pending is anticipation. You begin to anticipate. As you begin to anticipate, it begins to create anxiety, right? Now, between the past and the present are episodes of your life. And this is where that past trauma, this is where they feel, this is where that past trauma is. So if you've had certain experiences in your life where you failed before, there's a likelihood that you'll be afraid of failure in the present. And if you were like me, you used to be very excited, very lively, but your parents killed it off because they could not handle you. So my particular case was that I used to dance, I used to sing music, I used to sing songs. Till today, I still play musical instruments, but I still sing till today, but not that much. If you want me to sing, I can sing for you, but I'm not going to sing. If you want me to sing, I have to turn on the musical version of my mic so that I can sing. So if you want me to sing, you can type sing, but I'll sing at the end of this session, all right? So that we can end. So there are times that we will be in the house. I'll be playing Sonia Day. I'll be playing Ebenezer Obey. I'll be playing Michael Jackson. I'll be playing Jackson 5. I'll be playing Cool It Now. I'm trying to remember the name of that group. Boys to Men, Terry Campbell, LL Cool J, plenty of them. I used to play them when I was growing up. And I used to dance in the house, but my parents killed that off by telling me, keep quiet, you're making noise. Stay in one place, go and carry your book. And so, because I wanted to be a good child, I wanted to be a child that would be accepted by my parents, I had to conform to what they wanted me to do. So sometimes we also call that domestication. We also call that domestication because we become domesticated human beings. That is, we become human doings rather than human beings. We now become a product of what other people have done to us rather than being who we truly need to have been since the beginning. All right. So if you have experienced something like that, there's a tendency that you will be afraid of failure in the present. Now, you may be thinking, but that's not any problem now. Why is that a problem? Let me explain that to you. And I might bring myself on screen right now. So in 2012, I decided I was going to start a podcast. I didn't launch a single podcast until 2014. And thankfully, Ade is here. He was one of the first persons to listen to my first podcast. Thank God that Chikere is here. Thank God that Shagakode is here. You were one of the first persons that knew me back in 2014 when I first launched my podcast those days. Now, I launched the podcast those days because the reason why it took me 2012 to 2014 to launch it was because the statement of my parents kept playing in my head that you do not know how to do anything in your life. By the way, my first four WAEC were basically F9. In fact, I went to Omole Grammar School in Omole Estate here, in Lagos here. That's the school that I went to. My NECO, my WAEC, both F9. It's only physics that I passed. And I think one of them I passed Yoruba, and the other one I passed English. Of course, because I speak English a lot. I don't speak Yoruba that much. Now, I only had in the two in WAEC and NECO that I did as a student of that school, it was F9, F9, F9. I remember telling my uncle that Fatai Wambe, Fubu Wambe, Fela Wambe, and the guy carried stone and stoned me and said, you don't even know how to do anything with your life, and caused me and did all that for me. Today, me and that guy now we are party, and the guy used to amaze at the kind of things that I now do today. If you've had certain failures in your past and you've suffered that kind of domestication from your past, there's a tendency that you'll be afraid of failure in the present. Main reason is because, like me, the statement that your parents said will still be playing at the back of your mind. Even when you're trying to attempt those things, it will still be playing at the back of your mind. And sometimes when I want to launch a podcast, I'll be like, I hope my mom does not. So let me even give you a classic example. Today, right now, as of today, my WhatsApp status, my mom does not view my WhatsApp status. I blocked my mom and my dad from viewing my WhatsApp status. Not because I'm still afraid of them, but because I just know that sometimes they will tell me, this thing is expensive. And I know what they are trying to do. They're simply trying to protect me. It's not like it's not like they don't want the good. Like I had a call today with someone, and this guy wants to move out of his father's house to go and rent an apartment. And the father did not have a problem, but the mom was basically resisting it. So I told him, your mom does not have a bad, your mom has your good interest at heart. They want the best for you. You only need to make them see it. I had to come to that point where I had to start getting myself to interpret things that way in order for me to be able to help myself. All right. So if you've had past trauma or you've experienced things, maybe you've had broken relationships before, maybe you've had a failed marriage before, maybe you've done a proposal like I have done several times, including December 2020. Mr. Shogakode connected me with a company. They told me to send proposal. I sent proposal to them. For January and February, I kept following up the guy. I had to forget it. Like, forget Jari, I don't have time to be chasing a proposal up and down. So it was turned down. I've sent proposals over the years. I even remember that some days ago, I was even planning to share a little backlog of my story with a friend of mine so that I can understand that the Dayo meeting now is basically a bunch of plenty things that have happened in the past, so that I doesn't think that, because that's what I always let people understand, that you are a product of your past. And so if you don't heal the past, you'll not be able to own the present and also to accept the future. And so that's why I made that statement when we were getting started with this class, that you have to heal the past, own the present, and then accept the future. You don't know what the future will hold. That's the reason why you have to accept it. You have to accept it such that if it works, if it doesn't work, I will learn anyway, because my brain is constantly learning. Do you get it now? So those are two reasons why people fear failure. It's the reason why a lot of people don't start projects. It's the reason why a lot of people don't attempt things that they want to really, really do, because they're afraid of failure. And it's because they've had an experience with failure in the past, or they've had a parent. Now, it may not necessarily be a parent, because I also have to be clear here that sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to be a parent. It could be an authority figure in your life. It could be maybe a pastor. It could be a leader. It could be a mentor. It could be someone you are looking up to. It could be an uncle, like I shared just now. So they could have created that overprotected childhood for you. They could have domesticated you while you are growing up. And so now when you want to attempt things, you'll be afraid that what will they say? What will happen if this goes wrong? Will they still say the same thing like that time? Will this still go the same way that it happened that time? And so this may continue to go on for that long. Do you get it now? So you need to understand where that fear is coming from. And this is the reason why I say that you cannot overcome fear through motivation. The most effective way to overcome fear is illumination. So for example, I'm illuminating a lot of things for you right now. And for some of you, you may not even need to do fear resolve process again, because you would have gotten an answer to your specific fear this night. But for some of you, you might need, in fact, a lot of you will actually need fear resolve process, because illumination alone does not only solve it. You also need to design strategies so that when you find yourself in such situations, you know exactly what you can do going forward. Now, number 3 way that that creates failure is what I call perfectionism. And this is where you are trying to get everything perfect. I tend to be a perfectionist. And I know someone here who also tends to be a perfectionist. The moment I say I know someone here, I know you may be laughing. We always want to get things right. We always want to get things perfect. In fact, it's the reason why we procrastinate a lot. We tell ourselves, if it is not perfect, it cannot be it. So this will take me back to some years. I wanted to start a relationship. I wanted to get married. Every single lady that comes my way, I'll filter them through the lens of, are they the perfect fit? Are they the perfect fit? Instead of me looking for the right fit, I was looking for the perfect fit. It came to that point where it had to take my mentor one day. He carried me in his car one day and then told me that, Dayo, you've been here for almost 5 years of your life. Ladies flock around you because, of course, I'm a fine guy now. In case you don't think I'm fine right now, let me shave, let me clear this. You see that I'm a very fine guy. But my wife is here, so in case you are hearing me, you cannot do anything anyway. Now, as a fine guy in those days, ladies used to flock around me. So it put me in a position of confusion. But I kept looking for the perfect woman. One day, my mentor had to put me in his car. We're driving around Makurdi. We did not have one place we're going, but I believed that he just wanted me to learn what he wanted me to learn that day. So he carried me in the car, and then he was asking a lot of questions. And one of the questions he asked me that day was that, if I find a woman that loves me, will I go for her, or will I go for a woman that I love? And I sat inside the car. I said, what will I answer? Now, I'm not going to tell you my answer. But eventually that day, my mentor helped me to understand that sometimes, in fact, a lot of times, he said that we will never find 80%, we will never find 100% of what we are looking for in the person we are considering. We will only find 80%. It takes wisdom for you to identify the 20% that is remaining and see it as the work that you will now groom, because you are the bridegroom. Since that day, that thing stuck in my mind till today. It was the one that helped me to understand that bridegroom means that you are to groom your bride. And that the reason why you have to groom your bride is because your bride will only come with 80% of what you need. Your bride will never come with 100% of what you need. The remaining 100% is your work. So that gave me a little confidence to ask somebody out. Eventually, the person that I asked out called me a broker's pastor, because those days I was a pastor. Of course, my mentor was a pastor, was a senior pastor of our church, and I happened to be the media pastor. So I was the guy handling the entire media ministry. And I was also a staff of the ministry those days. So the lady eventually called me a broker's pastor and broke my heart and left me alone. I'm telling you these stories now so that you understand that I've had my own fair share of failures in life too. But that did not define me anyway. They only helped me to learn so that I can be who I am right now. So you may have had such past failures. You may have even had domestication, and you may be there seeking perfection. And the interesting thing is that progress does not make perfect. Progress only makes permanent. There's no progress that makes anything perfect. I know that a lot of times we have said it, that progress makes perfection, that practice makes perfection. Practice only makes progress happen. And that progress is what now eventually leads to perfection. Do you get that? So practice makes progress, progress leads to perfection. So rather than seeking perfection, what you should be seeking should be progress. All right? That is, if you have an idea, launch it. If you have this project, execute it. Let it fail. Sit down, come back and say, what did I learn from the failure of this project? And by the way, that is one thing I learned from Elon Musk. I have his book in my library here. A book about him, actually, was not the one that wrote it. And by the way, he did not want them to write that book about him. Elon Musk is a control freak. So he wanted to control every single detail inside that book. So he did not want them to publish that book. So he threatened the guy that was going to write the book. I heard the lady. He threatened, I think Ashton Vance or something like that is her name. He threatened that we must not put this information, we must not put this one, we must not put this one. So the person got close and said, that's the main reason why I'm going to put it. So that other people will know this side of you that you threatened. In fact, the introduction of the book, the author said that he threatened. So Elon Musk is a control freak. So even though a lot of people admire him, he's also coming from a place of fear. Of course, he has his own baggage. He also has his own background. He came from Africa, by the way. He came from South Africa. And there's a lot of story there, but let's not go there. Number 4, the reason why a lot of people fear failure is the 4th thing. So I've called this one past trauma, parenting. We talk about perfectionism. Let's use the 4th one as also P. So let's call it personalization. Let's call it personalization. Now, what does personalization mean? Personalization simply means that every single thing that happens to you, you personalize it rather than learn from it. So when that lady broke up with me and called me a broker's pastor, it demoralized me. I remember one morning there in Makodi, I had lost the house I was living in. Rain had carried away all my certificates. And that is the house I was staying before. Rain flooded the house and carried away all my certificates, carried away all my stuff, including my radio, the radio deck. The only thing I was able to rescue were just very few items. Very, very few items. So rain carried everything away. Tomorrow, I'm going to court to go and write affidavit because I need the certificate now. Even that, that's a long story anyway. Now, it demoralized me such that I had to leave that house, move to a friend's place to go and squat with a friend. And when I was squatting with that friend, it got to that point where I was very tired. I was worn out. I was at my wit's end. I was crying one morning because I tried a lot of things and they kept failing. I'd lost my house. I even rented an apartment. The landlord chased me out 6 months into that rent because I brought in coppers to come and stay with me, because that time I was also running a coppers ministry. So I was also taking care of coppers. We'll bring in coppers all the way from, what's the name of this place, to Makodi, and then we'll house them. And then I had 6 coppers staying in my house. And somehow the landlord came around, saw copper uniforms in my compound, and then gave me quit notice that I have to quit the house. He only wants only me, not coppers. He did not even let me fight my case or anything. So they quit the house. I quit the house in 6 months of the rent. So I got to that point where everything was working against me. My relationship had broken, everything had gone, and I was crying one morning. Why was I crying? Because I was personalizing everything that was happening. I was literally looking at it as me being the reason why everything was going wrong. So when you personalize things like that, what happens is fear now begins to, particularly the fear of failure, becomes louder. It becomes louder because it now begins to cloud your judgment, begins to cloud how you feel, begins to cloud the decisions you want to make. And as we usually say it in the fear resolve process, that any decision you make out of fear usually leads to a wrong outcome. A lot of people will say, do it afraid, right? But you know the interesting thing, when you do it afraid, a lot of times, the outcome is not that friendly. So if you want to do it afraid, you need to put yourself in a state that you are able to look beyond, get past that fear first, before you can do it afraid. All right? And of course, we've talked about that when we talked about the cave that we fear to enter, right? So now, what happened that time as I was personalizing everything that was happening that time? God wanted to make miracle happen. And the senior pastor of House on the Rock Church, who happens to be a client of mine, then sent me a text. As at that point in my life, I was publishing a newsletter every single month. So we're publishing a physical newsletter, 2,000 copies every month. So I was also expending money, my salary on printing newsletters, 2,000 copies every month, sending it around different states in Nigeria. I mean, we're sending to Mina, we're sending to Kogi, we're sending to different campuses, Futa, we're sending across campuses across Nigeria. And this pastor has just read. Now, the pastor has my number, right? He just finished reading that particular edition that we had published for that month. And he sent text to thank me that morning. I was on my knees crying that morning, and the text came in. Now, what happened at that point was, remember, I was personalizing all the failures. I was personalizing all the different things that have happened to me. The moment his text came in, the text painted a new reality of myself to me. And he began to tell me some of the things that he was able to utilize from the things that I wrote. He could even use it in his mid-week sermon. He could use some of the things that I taught in his mid-week sermon. And it was, by the time I was reading the text, and I put down the text, smile, I smiled, laugh, I laughed, the cry, I cried. But this guy was not coming from a place of, so it wasn't bad after all. I thought everything was bad. But not the present thing, the pastor did not be sending SMS alone. The pastor was actually owing me some money at that point because I'd done some projects for them, so they needed to pay me. So around that time, around that same day, that pastor sent money to my account. And you know this way I used to say that sometimes people say they are depressed. That depression is simply coming from a place of lack and fear, not exactly because they've been diagnosed as depressed. That was how alert, bank alert. That time I only had GTB anyway. That was how bank alert cured my. That was how bank alert cured my crying that day. But that taught me a lesson. Of course, I can share it with you today because I'd learned from it. But if I did not learn from it, I can continue to personalize all those experiences, and I might still be stuck in those experiences. So again, I'm going to tell you that if you're having fear, particularly fear of failure, they are either stemming from any of those four places, from past trauma, from protection, from overprotected childhood, coming from authority, your parents, or coming from a place of seeking perfectionism, or coming from a place of personalization, trying to personalize everything that happens to you, interpreting it through the lens of what you did. So, for example, they will have an accident and they will personalize it and say that it is because they did something to somebody. That's the reason why they had an accident. Or some people will even spiritually personalize this and say God is simply punishing them for their sin. That's the reason why they did that. That's personalization in play there. It is not because you did something, that's why it happened to you. Pick the lesson, discard the remaining things. So I hope that this session has been helpful to you. Again, this is what we intend to do. We are starting Fear Resolve by the 30th of this month. So please go ahead. If you want to register, go ahead to dayosamuel.com/register, and then it's going to open up a form to you. And you can also read Fear Resolve, more about Fear Resolve from there. Now, this is what we're going to be taking for the next 3 weeks. We're going to be looking at the scenarios. And when I say scenarios, what the scenarios means, scenarios basically means events and situations that have colored our experience of life, that has made us become who we are and created the fears that we've had. Last 2 weeks, when we had this workshop, I walked you through 8 different things that create our fears, right? Secondly, we will look at the scripts, values, beliefs, and memories that allow the fears to be embedded. Not only embedded, to allow the fears to be reinforced. So sometimes you are afraid of something because you believe that thing. So for example, let me give you a little clue here. All men has come is a belief, it's a script, right? The more you believe in it, if a man does something that looks like what story you heard somewhere, your mind will suggest to you to do the same thing that all men has come will lead to. It's a sequence that you are running, and you continue to run that sequence. except you decide to break that frame. All right. So that's the okay. So some days ago, I also talked about breaking the frame. Is the reason why we call it break the frame. That was why we used to call it break the frame before. So we break the frame of this cycle. Instead of running this cycle every day of your life, we help you find the area where you need to break. Whether it's in the area of scenarios, the scripts, or the stories. Of course, the stories are the narratives we share with our others or we tell ourselves. There are certain things you tell yourself that stop you from taking action, that stop you from doing the things that truly matter to you. You know that thing that you tell yourself. And there are states that you also get into, how you feel per time. So, for example, procrastination, basically, a lot of people think that it's a time management, that it's because you don't manage your time, it's because it's not important, it's because it's not urgent. They think that, but a lot of times, actually, based on research, new research that came out, I think was it 2019 or 2020, procrastination
Sorry about that. Please just kindly hang on. He left the room. He'll be back shortly. Thank you.
sorry, my mic was automatically muted. Sorry. Can you hear me now? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
That
Yes.
Carry on,
everybody
sir.
hear me, please. Can you hear me? All right. Okay, so that is the end of our session. I don't know what happened. My network just suddenly went off and then it came back on. So I would like to know right now, what have you learned so far that has helped you so far? What have you learned so far? What have you learned so far? And again, Sylvester, if you're here, or Tomison, if you are here, please help me type the link for them to register in the session in the chat box. So, all right. So please share with me, what have you learned so far that can help you? What have you learned so far that can help you? I would like to hear from everybody as we end this session. All right, please go ahead. You can unmute yourself. Oh. You can unmute yourself. You can unmute yourself. You can unmute yourself. You can unmute yourself. I would like to hear from everyone. What have you learned today
Okay,
that
sir.
you can utilize? Um, Good evening.
Okay.
Today is Vivo or Vivo
Good
that I'm
evening,
seeing today.
sir. Thank you for a
Last time
very
it was
wonderful
iPhone.
session.
Go on.
Thank you for a very amazing question. I actually learned that there are other forms of fear. Me just being scared, I really do not want to call it fear. I could call it procrastination, I could call it anxiety, but I just don't want to accept that I was scared of taking one step or doing something. So I learned that the other kinds of fear. And I also learned it's good to be in my comfort zone sometimes. Take my time, retreat, analyze everything and go back. I think that's like the best thing I've learned to do. It's good to be in my comfort zone. Thank you very much.
Amazing, 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 amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? And again, don't forget you can also join us at the Fair Resolve process, which is starting on the 30th of this month, starting in about now. Here's the interesting thing. So let me make an offer to everybody here. Fair Resolve process is supposed to be 60K for the 3 weekends that we're going to have. Now, I want to make a special offer to just, I'm looking at calendar. I want to open up calendar to be sure that the date I'm going to give you. Okay, good. So between now and Wednesday, I want to make an offer to just 2 persons who will join Fair Resolve for only 40K. So rather than pay the 60K, you are going to get everything that every other person will get, but between now and Wednesday, you only get Fair Resolve for 40K. Remember that Fair Resolve is going to go for 3 weekends. That is going to go for 3 weekends from 30th to 30th. Oh, sorry, it's supposed to be May 1st, May 2nd, then May 8th, May 9th, May 15th, May 16th. The May 15th, May 16th is going to be in the evening. So, because I have an event on May 15th, but you can get in for just 40K between now and Wednesday, but only available between now and Wednesday. Once after Wednesday, it goes back to 60K, and it's only available for just 2 persons. So only 2 persons, and you get in for just 40K. Now, again, if you want to make any payment or anything, or you need to ask further questions, please reach out to Sylvester. Sylvester, please drop your phone number and drop your phone number as a chat so that they can reach you. So you can reach out to Sylvester, or if you would like to claim your spots between now and Wednesday, before Wednesday, you can drop your phone number. We'll reach out to you. Sylvester will reach out to you and discuss how to enroll you in. All right. So I would like to hear from more persons. What have you learned today that will help you going forward? What have you learned today that can help you going forward? What have you learned today that can help you going forward? You can unmute yourself, please. In fact, maybe I should unmute everybody. Self. Yeah, you can unmute yourself now. Chikere, Vivo, Abimbola, Mary, I would like to hear from you. Madam Temi Lawrence, I'd like to hear from you. What have you learned today that you can use going forward? Where is Shegun? Where is this webinar ends in about 2 minutes time.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Chikere speaking.
Thank you. Thank you for
All right.
that.
What I learned was especially when you broke down how our brains learn. That is generalization, distortion, and deletion. You know, I haven't viewed it in that perspective. And, you know, with this explanation, it makes more sense why I take certain actions in certain ways, in certain scenarios. So I think that puts me in better control of my emotions and my actions, and to an extent, my reactions. Then the explanation of the past, present, and future. Yeah, I'm a very fearful person, but I think it's been a slow, but I would say it's a steady process. I remember I talked to you about writing a book about security tips, and I still remember what you said. Go and write it. Wow! Since then, I haven't written it, but I've gotten like a template down. But like you said, fear in various forms, and in this form is a form of procrastination. But we'll get there. So I really, really appreciate today's session. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. I look forward to seeing you or having you in fear resolve process. Will help you deal with that procrastination. In fact, you will see the exact sequence that makes you procrastinate. And I say the exact sequence, there's an assessment that we now have called the Ready Set Go assessment, which is an anti-procrastination plan. You probably would have even seen it on my status or maybe received it via email. The anti-procrastination plan comprises of three parts: an assessment that helps you to identify the part two. The part two is the part of understanding exactly why you procrastinate. Why do I feel like I should show you? So thank you very much for that. I love that, and I'm still waiting for that book to be written. You are a you are a senior staff. You are a senior staff, and
I don't know what
a
you're
senior staff
saying.
eh?
I said, I don't know what you're saying, though.
Oh, you can anybody hear me? Can you guys hear me? Oh, sorry, I reduced my audio. I reduced my audio because you were speaking, so I wanted to be able to hear you. So I was saying that you are a senior staff, so you are you are a, you are a senior staff, and your work is very, very powerful, and the place where you work. Anyway, let me not say much. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Francis,
sound.
I'd like to hear.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Francis, I would like to hear from you. It's good to have you here, Francis. It's good to have you here, Mary. It's good to have you here. Let me show you the Ready Set Go. So this is Ready Set Go. You can see this is the anti-procrastination plan that makes taking immediate action easy. This is what our research has shown, and these are some of the assessments that you will get to take when you join the fair resolve process. So this is the assessment right here. So this is assessment right here. So you get to take this assessment, you identify exactly. There are 5 categories of procrastinators that I have found based on experience and research. That those who call purposeful procrastinator, passionate procrastinator, high performance procrastinator, protective procrastinator. Protective procrastinator usually are those that have fears. Pensive procrastinator, peacekeeping procrastinator. These are all different procrastinators that we have, all right? But we'll talk more about that in the fair resolve process. So you understand exactly why you run that sequence and how you run that sequence and what makes you do that and how to get past, how to break that frame. Francis, please go ahead. Thank you for joining, by the way.
Hello, good evening, sir. Thanks a lot. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Wow.
I'm trying to mimic your voice.
I've learned a lot. I've been taking notes here since. The part of fear, that's perfectionism. Want to get everything right, and I'm going through a lot of stuff right now around that same region. So I've been trying to. What has really been something I want to do something like I want to delve into a new project, but I'm trying to get my data. Okay, let me get my data complete. Let me get all the things I need complete, And the more I do the research, the more I do the workings, the more I do, the more I know that there are more things to be done, and time is going. And I just saw the problem right now, and it is that perfectionism. Another thing that also a problem is this when you talked about this overprotectiveness, that's parenting kind of thing. So you want to do something, you still have that mindset, what will this person, when you have a figure like a leader or someone that is there, that what will this person feel, how will he take it, what will be his approach, are you sure I'm not missing it, are you sure I'm not. So I've been able to to get those 2 points, like, okay, perfectionism, trying to get everything set and right before I move, and also having the picture of what will people say, what would this person say, and that's one of those two things have been the major issue in me launching something I want to do now. Like, wow, this is really, really something to check out. Thanks a lot. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot today. That alone has shattered my thinking, and I'm just putting things down as we were talking. I was just, okay, what are the things? What are the things? Wow. Thank you very much. I've stayed glued. I've
Thank
been
you.
taking notes. Thanks a lot, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir. I'm glad that this session was helpful to you. And with that, we will wrap up this session, and then I'm going to go and hug my wife and go and sleep. But I'm glad. Thank you, everyone, for joining this session tonight. I believe that this session has been helpful to you. I believe that this has brought some insight and illumination to you. More importantly, I believe that some of what I've shared with you here, this workshop, has provided you with the courage and the insights you need to lead your life in the direction that matters most to you, which is the most important part. If that has happened, thank you very much for joining me. And I look forward to seeing you in the Fear Resolve process. Again, you can check out dayosamuel.com/register, or just use Fear Resolve and it takes you straight to the page. Just enter your name in the detail in the form, and we'll reach out to you before Wednesday so that you can claim your spot for the discount that I just gave, for the offer that I just made, that 2 persons can get into Fear Resolve for just 40K between now and Wednesday. But after Wednesday, it goes back to that 60K, okay? So it's just for 2 persons. Once we have the 2 persons, then we count it as done. All right. So thank you very much, everybody. It's good to have you here. And thank you for joining me. Thank you, Chikere. Thank you, Mildred. Thank you, Abimbola. Thank you, Sylvester. Thank you, Chinaza. Juliet Israel. Thank you again. You were here the last session. Mary, thank you for joining us. Madam Timmy Lawrence, thank you very much for joining us. With that, I'm going to tell you that Namaste. My Namaste means that my divinity recognizes the divinity in you. Have yourself a wonderful night and a wonderful life. I'm going to see you next time. All right? And for some of you, I'm going to see you in the Fear Resolve process. So enjoy yourself, and